Another reading for you today from a beautiful book called The People's Guide to Mexico. And the extract that I've chosen today is going to be about public transport. We've talked about driving and traveling to Mexico. Let's have a look for a few pages at the whole idea of public transportation. Mexico's public transportation networks are so extensive that almost no point or area of the country is totally inaccessible to the traveller. Buses. Bus service is truly remarkable, and the common expression that wherever there's a road, there's a bus is no exaggeration. There are approximately 700 separate bus lines, and though service may vary from air-conditioned luxury to open stake trucks, they'll get you there somehow. For those few places inaccessible to even the most determined bus driver, transportation will almost certainly be available in some other form, by small aeroplane, canoe, or burro. The excitement of visiting remote villages is sometimes overshadowed by the experience of the bus ride to it. The condition of the bus and the road and the general condition of the other passengers, particularly around fiesta time, makes each bus ride a unique adventure. Travellers who use buses often will find that they become totally immersed in Mexico. There is no other method short of walking through the country to establish such close and continual contact with the people. The cost of travelling by bus is remarkably low. See prices for cost per mile. The expense of operating your car will buy an incredible number of bus tickets. Unless we're on a camping trip, we almost always travel by bus or train and notice a substantial amount of savings. There are two types of bus service, second class and first class. Second class buses vary from relative comfort to positively backbreaking, depending on where you're going and the age of the bus. In recent years, many companies have begun to replace their old second-class buses with newer models and first-class retirees. Once a bus becomes too funky for first-class passengers to tolerate, it is sent into second-class service. From there, the only place for it to go is into the junkyard or over a cliff. As the ancient wrecks are gradually replaced, some of the colour and excitement has gone out of second-class bus travel, but enough remains to overwhelm most tourists when they ride one of these mobile adventures. With steady increases in population and traffic, the Mexican government has undertaken a program to monitor the nation's professional drivers. Don't be shocked if your bus is stopped by the police and the driver is subjected to a quick physical or even psychological examination. Just pray that he passes it. I love this little sign. Dios permite mi regreso. My return is a function of God, or God will permit my return. The initial shock of being crammed into a rusty tin box with 50 other people, a variety of market goods and domestic animals, soon moderates to a feeling of warm camaraderie. You smilingly agree to a woman's request that you hold her baby while she whips up a few tacos from ingredients extracted from a greasy piece of newspaper. When she's managed to assemble her lunch, she takes the baby back and offers you a rag for the mess on your lap. Beads of sweat are breaking out on your upper lip, but the window is frozen shut by years of rust. You take a deep breath or two and find a taco under your nose. You've been invited to eat. The truck bumper graffiti that I've just talked about, God allows my return. You want to decline the invitation, but from the thrusting motions she is making with the taco, it is clear that it would be grossly impolite to refuse. No matter, it turns out to be your favourite, steamed goat head with lots of chili pepper. The air you suck in through tightly pursed lips sounds like ripping cloth, and you attempt to cover your embarrassment at reacting to the pepper by staring out of the window. Through tear-filled eyes, you gave over a 1,000-foot precipice, but the taco stuck halfway. I'm sorry, this is so funny. I've been on that bus. But the taco stuck halfway down your throat blocks a scream of fear. Through tear-filled eyes, I've already read that, forgive me. The lurching of the bus is considerable, very similar to that of a boat foundering on a storm-tossed sea. The ringing in your ears almost drowns out the voice behind the hand that is holding a crude pottery mug under your nose. You look... This is hilarious. You look up, eyes filled with a plea for mercy, but the smiling face insists. You tip the mug back, determined to do a chug-a-lug and have done with it. But this is pulque, the fermented sap of the maguey plant, and it is distinctly slimy. It hits your stomach like warm mustard water. Your apparently experienced manner of tossing down the pulque brings admiring remarks from other people jammed in nearby. They appreciate the fact that you're trying to be sociable, and to show this appreciation, they contribute little delicacies they're bringing home from the market. A piece of deep-fried pigskin, a cactus fruit, some incredibly sour berries, and 2 old tortillas with something brown smeared on them that are offered up for your enjoyment. You're just about to go under when the bus lurches to a stop. Everyone piles out to see what's gone wrong, and you gratefully stagger into the fresh mountain air. A front tyre has blown, the second flat of the trip, and there doesn't seem to be another spare. After a quick look at the other tyres, the driver decides to remove one of the rear jewels and put it on the front. As he does this, his assistants, a motley collection of boys about 8 years old, fill the leaking radiator with water from a nearby ditch. They're using 1 beer bottle and a leaky oil can, so they have to make several trips. When the repairs are finished, everyone crowds back into the bus, and in the confusion, you lose your seat. You're grateful, however, because you can now assume a position in the aisle near the front door. The body of the bus is so low that you have to stand with your neck slightly bent. Every really bad bump gets you a crack on the back of your skull. At least there is air to breathe, since half of the windshield and the entire door are missing. When you've settled into a more or less tolerable slouch, you begin to take a new interest in the driver and the road ahead. Before entering the mountains, the road had been reasonable. Now, however, with occasional boulders to dodge, half-filled washouts, and vertical drops of hundreds of feet just scant inches from the edge of the road, you wonder seriously if the bus will make it. The driver is shifting like a madman. Something is wrong with the clutch, and he's having trouble on the steeper grades. You notice anxiously that the brake pedal goes very close to the floor when he throws his weight on it. You wonder then about the motto painted on the front bumper, the one you and your friends had laughed about before you left. Guide me, God, for I am blind. It's anyone's guess just how much is getting through those opaque sunglasses and the heavily decorated windshield to the driver's eyes. The garlands of plastic flowers, intertwined with blinking Christmas tree lights, have sagged so low that he has to lean forward to peer over them on particularly tight corners. A large crucifix is mounted between the 2 front windshields, and each point of the cross lights up to correspond with a particular gear. As he shifts, you follow the lights: white, green, red, red, green, white. The ceiling is plastered with an unlikely assortment of faded pictures. The Virgin Mary peers from between an old Marilyn Monroe magazine photo and a rather obscene playing card. In addition, a variety of dangling objects, evidently amulets and charms, swing in crazily distracting patterns in front of the driver, occasionally whacking him on the forehead. Between shifts, he idly fondles the gear shift knob, a blindly staring doll baby head that winks conspiratorially at each bump. Before you can determine the significance of this macabre object, the bus arrives at your destination and you gratefully jump off. Because second-class bus rides that last more than a few minutes invariably become social affairs, it's nice to have something to offer people who offer something to you. This can usually be nothing more than a piece of candy, a cigarette, or a turn with a newspaper. I usually carry a small bottle of liquor, both for socializing and for numbing tired muscles and brain cells. A large bottle involves the danger of getting smashed. There's nothing more agonizing and awful than a hangover on a rattling second-class bus. The driver will rarely object if you drink, but it's best to be discreet, at least until he smells the fumes and looks thirsty himself. It's not customary to offer your seat to anyone standing unless they are ill or very old. This conflicts with what most of us had drummed into our heads as children, but standing for hours in a bouncing hot bus can do a great deal of attitude changing. In most cases, you'll find that after you've offered a lady your seat, she takes it gratefully and then gets off within the next mile. You then continue standing as some guy elbows past you and drops into the vacant spot with a big sigh of relief. If you don't feel like giving up your seat, it's polite to offer to hold something for people who are standing. Children seem to be the most common bundle, though you may be given a chicken or a bag of groceries. Should the cosy atmosphere get to be too much for your stomach, ask the driver or his accomplice for permission to ride on the roof or the rear bumper. The roof is not only much safer than the bumper, but offers a better view with less chance of fume poisoning. The only time I've ever driven a fast car in Mexico, I was passed by a second-class bus travelling at over 80 miles per hour. This wasn't unusual, nor were the three men on the rear bumper. The one reading a comic book, however, without holding on, seemed abnormally blasé. After you've ridden a few genuine second-class buses, you'll understand why Mexicans refer to them as matasanos, health killers, and doctorsanos, sarcastically, Dr. Health. It should be kept in mind, however, that on a statistical basis, miles per accident or something like that, Mexican buses have an excellent survival record. When the bus stops in a terminal, the driver will yell out how long you have before it leaves again. If you don't understand rapid Spanish, you may be afraid to leave the bus in order to avoid being left behind. This happened to me on my first trip, and I was thoroughly sick off the bus after several hundred miles of confinement to a hard seat. In general, you can expect 15-minute stops in terminals and 5 minutes or more elsewhere. On side roads, the stop may be long enough for the driver to take a bath, shave, have a good lunch with a few beers, and do a little gossiping. During long rest stops, the driver may tell everyone to get off so that the bus can be locked up. On all stops, it's best to leave something in your seat, a book or hat, as new passengers may not have been assigned a specific seat and will go for yours. Valuables, needless to say, should be carried with you if the bus is left open. Second-class buses leave the terminal with amazing regularity, and you'll rarely have to wait more than an hour. In fact, it's quite common to make connections so quickly that you don't have time to find a place to eat. Whenever a bus slows down, someone will be there selling cake, tacos, sandwiches, pop, beer, and fruit. Vendors will often board the bus and sell their wares between stops. Most of this food is relatively good, but it's wise to be especially cautious of greasy food while bus riding. We've found that almost every problem we've had with diarrhea or upset stomach occurred after eating something greasy. If you get sick on a bus, it is a real hassle. I always carry a handy supply of emergency medicines, at the very minimum some type of pills or liquid to prevent uncontrollable diarrhea. If you absolutely must request an unscheduled stop, the bus driver will oblige, though perhaps with a ribald comment. In addition to regular vendors, bus passengers are often targets for a variety of enterprising hucksters offering everything from salvation to Kleenex. They often work in cooperation with the driver, who allows them aboard during regular stops or picks them up along the way, giving them a long enough ride to reel off their pitch. The best are groups of musicians. They pile onto the bus with beat-up guitars, accordions and flutes, and bang out a few discordant tunes as a hat or a tin can is passed for donations. Unfortunately, their routine is now being imitated by groups of aggressive young men who play insipid gospel songs and then make a plea for donations to aid the poor. Since they're usually dressed better than most of the passengers, they often get a chilly reception. Deaf mutes selling miniature keychain screwdrivers and sign language cards are also common. They have it down to a profitable science. They prefer buses that are making 5-minute stops, as most of the passengers stay on board. The deaf-mute hustles down the aisle, dropping the item for sale in each person's hand or lap. The card invariably translates as "give generously." Once he's reached the rear of the bus, he starts back, collecting donations. If you don't want a pot metal miniature screwdriver or are just tired of all the deaf mutes, hand it back or put it on the seat beside you. They seldom argue. In addition to musicians and mutes, you'll often see men selling books on medicinal herbs. Some are good. Other people may give short, impassioned speeches, recite epic poems, or gasp out a heart-rending tale of woe that ends with the inevitable open palm. You may be offered merchandise rather than an appeal for charity. Regional variations can be very interesting. Homemade molasses in tequila bottles, honey, bottles of rompope, like alcoholic eggnog, bags of trimmed sugarcane, live iguanas and armadillos, birds, beadwork, guitars, Huichol Indian god's eyes, and other irresistibles. It's a far cry from the Greyhound, and please do not speak to the operator while the coach is in motion. High-speed, air-conditioned buses equipped with restrooms and stewardesses serving refreshments travel the same routes as many of the second-class lines. These buses are called Pullman, although this means that they offer toilets, not beds. Stops are infrequent on first-class runs and occur only at terminals or occasional rest and refreshment points. A ride on a first-class bus doesn't have quite the atmosphere of a second-class junker through countless villages, but you certainly get to your destination in a hurry. Some people say that they prefer to ride second class because of the white-knuckle speeds that the first-class buses attain and maintain for such long stretches. In reality, second-class buses are no slower than first class over the same roads. To make up for time lost loading passengers, the second-class bus driver will do anything to keep his average speed ridiculously high. This means that he'll pass on curves and hills, race chicken fashion to beat other vehicles to narrow bridges, and generally make a complete fool of himself. This, of course, isn't to say that the first-class bus driver is slow or cautious in comparison. And this piece of truck bumper graffiti says, "El azote de las carreteras," punisher of the highway, the road whipper. Here's some more of the graffiti signs you typically see on the bumpers of a bus or hung above the window near the driver. Libre y sanitario, free and clean. Me critican por ardor, they criticize me from jealousy. Sabor a muerte, flavor of death. All bus drivers aren't maniacs or fatalists. One in particular stands out in my mind as extremely level-headed and reasonable. He was in charge of an old American-made bus, and the sign over the aisle read in English, "Your operator, safe, courteous, reliable, Jesus Cristo." A small ID-type photo of Christ attached to the sign left no doubts as to who was really in the driver's seat. Terminals. There are so many bus lines, often each with its own station, that locating the right terminal can be a problem. Excuse me. Many towns are combining all bus lines and offices into one central terminal, usually called Central de Autobuses. If your Spanish is weak or your destination unpronounceable, write down the name of the place you want to go or say a Oaxaca, a Morelia, etc. The A means to and is pronounced as in hell. A bus driver, passenger, shoeshine boy, or ticket agent will then tell you the name of the bus line that you want. Although the terminal you're looking for may be conveniently located next door to the one you're in, chances are that it will be on the other side of town. Wandering aimlessly in search of a bus station, particularly in the middle of the night, is an almost futile effort. Bus terminals seem to delight in being obscure and hard to locate. A cab is a worthwhile splurge in such a case. Of Mexico's approximately 700 bus lines, many have names that reflect at least some of the romance of travel aboard them. 3 Stars of Gold, Piety, Horseshoes of Silver, the Yellow Arrow, the White Star, Wings of Gold, and Christopher Columbus. One that I worry about operates under the initials LUSH, or Lush. Mexico is an excellent example of how a mass transit system can move literally millions of people. A recently built bus terminal in Mexico City is designed to handle 3,000 buses and 100,000 passengers daily. This is just one of several major terminals within the capital and part of a nationwide program to build 31 new terminals throughout the country by the year 1982. First-class tickets are for assigned seats, and many second-class lines operating newer buses also use numbered seating. Look on the tickets for the word asiento and a number. You may be offered the chance to select your own seat number at the ticket counter. The diagram is similar to those used at airlines. I always choose a seat in the teens, 13 to 19, give or take a seat. This puts you in the first half of the bus, handy for quick rushes to the front door at rest stops, but far enough back to avoid having to watch traffic. When riding on buses equipped with bathrooms, almost all first class and many of the second class buses avoid the last few seats. Bus bathrooms are smelly and the odour and slamming of the door will distract you from the scenery. Your ticket for first class should be marked with the number of the bus, the hour of departure and the destination. Check them closely. If you or the agent makes an error, it should be cleared up immediately, or they'll assume you've just changed your mind about when you want to leave and are trying to pull a fast one. The departure is marked salida or hora, and the bus number is under camión or autobús. The destino may be printed right on the ticket or stamped and scribbled across it. That's public transportation, a little extract from The People's Guide to Mexico.